You are listening to Let's Be Honest with your host, Just Jonda. Hello and welcome to Let's Be Honest with your host, Just Jonda. And of course, when we do gossip in the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City with my co-host, Missy. This is part 2 of episode 103. And this is season 2, episodes 14 and 15 of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. We had so much to talk about, especially after we got into the gossip and talked about part 1, that I decided to split the episodes to give you a part 1 and 2, especially since my software sometimes cuts us off. So we were basically talking about the when Mary and Jen were talking. It's sad because honestly, if Mary wasn't so disingenuous and nuts and problematic and hadn't just told her she prayed that she be found guilty, it could have actually been a nice moment.
I mean, it could have been, would have been, should have been, but some people are horrible. Some people are just horrible people, and she's one of them. So, I mean, because you notice later on in the discussion when somebody had said something about like, yeah, we're all on your side, we're all here, or like everyone understands and is here for you, and Mary made a face and said something like, no, they're not. I mean, I don't know if you caught that, but
I
I'm
did.
like, this is so like you are the worst ever. Can you pretend for 5 seconds?
But the thing that's hilarious is when she made that comment, I don't even think she was talking about herself. That's what's so shady about her crazy in this whole thing with the totally unnecessary lie. Sorry about that, guys. I had a hole in my mouth, a holes in my mouth. Um, that's what's so crazy because going to now think about that scene and what we know of Mary, and also everything that happened preceding that, including her lying and then going to comfort Jen, if you want to call it that. I mean, I guess considering everything that was going on, as crazy as that whole thing was, the comfort she got from Mary was better than nothing because nobody else got up to follow her. So I'll give it that much. But at any rate, when Mary made that comment, bizarrely enough, I promise you, she wasn't talking about herself. When Mary made that comment, not everyone or whatever, she was talking about Meredith. She was talking about Jennie. Which and probably even Lisa, Heather, and Whitney, because again, from Mary's perspective, she was not saying anything bad about Jen. They were. So that's it was funny, but extra crazy when it comes to Mary. But speaking of extra crazy, and I get to do my voice, that's why I had to put in my halls first. When Meredith decided she'd had enough and she was going to leave, which again didn't have a problem with because I think what she said about their behavior was on point, even though it was still a bit, uh, everybody look at me. But what she said was correct. It kind of fell into that whole even a broke clock is right twice a day type thing. When Lisa somehow wrapped this whole thing in a bow into I'm under attack. They're attacking me. Don't send me back there without you. I need you, Mayor. I need you, Mayor. I need you to come back and be there with me. Can you do that as my friend? I need you as my friend to defend me, Mayor. Will you just come back for me? And I'm taking my bow.
I mean, that was
I
pretty
think I should
good.
give myself applause. I'm going to clap for that. I thought I was good. That literally hurts my throat, by the way.
Okay, but here's the
I
thing.
love doing it, but it actually hurts.
Here's the thing. They showed a picture of her when she was younger, right? And
Hmm.
so is that voice the result of rhinoplasty or is that natural? Because she definitely had a nose job or something.
For sure.
I don't know.
Interestingly enough, with Lisa, I think that part of Lisa in that voice, I mean, there could be some throat stuff going on, but honestly, I think a part of it is her idea of talking like she's posh. I honestly think there is an element of that voice that is a bit affected. I find I'm getting a bit of the Nene leaks from her in terms of the voice. I think that there is certainly the possibility that she's done it so long, it's become how she sort of sounds. But I honestly think that's in her mind her version of being posh.
It sounds crazy though. It does.
Yeah.
And when Meredith was like,
Well,
"You
Nene
have
sounds
been,"
crazy. Elizabeth Holmes sound crazy. Meredith, again, my theory with her voice and the whining. I'm not going to keep saying it, but you already know.
but
Um,
when she said, "You've been yelling for the past half hour," I wanted to fall out of my chair. That was actually really funny.
and you know what? As we know, when you consider that these scenes are heavily edited and whatever because they're recording for hours and hours, I totally believe Meredith. Because this isn't the first time when she said. Because remember, in the house, she said she'd been screaming for an hour. I actually believe Meredith when she said that she had been yelling for half an hour, or the other time that she was yelling for an hour, because we have seen that Lisa is not gonna. She's the type that's not gonna stop if the situation is not going her way. Number one, and number two, we know that these scenes, just like when they talk about these reunions, they go on for hours. Like the reunions, they record for like 10, 12 hours. So I believe Meredith when she said that Lisa was going on and on for 30 minutes. We just only saw 10. That would be in keeping with Lisa that she would keep going on and on. She probably cried and threatened to call John and all of that stuff that she does.
I mean,
So
I'm over her though. I am a bit over her. Like I was getting annoyed, and Mary just she's she's Mary, but even when Mary was trying to address Jen and Lisa kept on answering for her,
yeah,
it's like shut up, like let her talk. Like I mean,
and
it, the
and and
whole
oh, go ahead.
the whole thing was just really a like that whole lunch is exactly why I don't like any of them. I don't like any of
Now
them.
there is one part, because I know that we give Mary we give her a lot of stuff, but I gotta say that there was a section there, and you'll probably agree that Mary was with the shits, and I was 100% here with. I was all in it with her. Is when it now, of course, the attorney in me was cringing, but now I'm talking. We're just Jonda and Missy viewers and enjoying the crazy. When Mary was doing pretty much what any of us would do behind closed doors, of course not in front of cameras, with one of our own friends. The only difference here obviously is that Mary is not her real friend. But I was all with the shits with Mary when she was like, okay, so the FBI came and you ain't know anything. You don't know nothing. You didn't, whatever, with all the stuff where Mary is, she's also very affectatious and whatever. That was probably the one time, well, maybe the second time in 2 seasons that I saw the sister come out in her, because that's exactly the way we would be questioning one of our friends.
Yeah, and Jen Shaw has to stop putting her father and her sons in her mess, because
Yeah.
every time she was swearing on them, I'm like, girl, don't do that. Because the stuff you're saying is so easily disproven. You know what
Oh,
I mean?
absolutely.
It's just
But I loved it. I loved it. That was I was on Team Mary for about, maybe that went on for what, about 90 seconds to 2 minutes. I was like I said, the attorney in me, I was cringing, but you know, had to remind myself to put that chick out of my mind while I watched this, and I was all in. Behind closed doors, again, not on a television show. Even if we were filming a television show, well, hell, you and I do a podcast that goes out to the world. If something like that happened between with one of us, we wouldn't be talking about it on this show. But you could best believe, behind closed doors, I'd be like, okay, girl, for real.
right, right, and
So you
all of
ain't know
them are
nothing.
savvy.
The whole F, the B, the I, the Homeland Security, NYPD, anybody on the East Coast with initials rolled up to your house, planes, guns, you know, hands in the air, AK-47s, all of that, and you don't know nothing.
The one thing I can say about this group is that they're all savvy enough that they know that that was a lie. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean?
Mhm.
They're not so rich that they can't be cognizant of things like that. Like, there are some of the iterations of this show, like, Real Housewives of New York or Beverly Hills. Yeah, you
Yes.
can get some housewife who's so wrapped up in whatever that it all blanks on them and they're not whatever. But these women are strivers. They all have their business ventures. So they're smart enough to know this is bullshit. They're smart
Absolutely.
enough to know that. Yeah, yeah.
And
So
also there were aspects of Jen's life and activities, as we know from the very early discussions in the van, that uh that well, like I said, there were aspects of it that they were able to explain to one another, because not Jen, Whitney's business, or rather her husband's business, was telemarketing, so she understands all of that. And then, even outside of the Whitney thing, and I know people, talk about the whole thing with her husband, and I guess we'll have to keep an eye on that. But even outside of the Whitney piece, all of them, when they really started talking about it, all of them knew that she was opening and closing businesses constantly, because when Heather said it, all of them were like, oh, yeah, which is still to this day why I truly believe was the real reason behind Lisa calling behind Lisa calling those attorneys, because Lisa screams opportunist. That's just her whole aura about her.
most
So,
definitely.
with if Jen is presenting with as a rich woman with lots of businesses and functions and all of that, and Lisa with the vodka company or the tequila company and the so-called events and all of this other stuff, it is not beyond the realm of possibility that even if she didn't do business with her, she attempted to do business with her. And that is why she was so creeped out in calling attorneys instead of just having the conversation with her husband like everybody else did, and then continuing to talk with her girlfriends, which is the normal
Right.
reaction.
Right. Right. Right.
Now, after the fact, talking to attorneys and all of that, just like Sutton did on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, yes, that makes sense, if for no other reason than the fact that you are filming with this person and you want to understand the possible ramifications of that. Because you have, like Sutton's a rich woman, so you have something to lose. So I certainly understand that. But in those initial moments, when you know absolutely nothing except the fact that authorities are looking for this person, and you know nothing, what the hell are you even calling lawyers for if you aren't concerned about some deeper connection you have with this person, when you don't even know what to tell the attorneys? If a client called me and told me they were about to go on a trip with you, and Homeland Security and this one and that one came to pick you up, and all they know is you, and I, my next thing would be like, so what did they tell you? Well, nothing. So what did she do? Well, she told us something that now we're thinking might be a lie, took her mics off, got in a vehicle and left. You don't know that she got arrested yet. You don't know anything. Whitney hadn't even looked up everything in the little blurb. And even at that point, remember that initial indictment was very open ended. So, what would you? So, if you caught it once, everything I said to you is still more than what Jen would have had to. I mean, not Jen. Lisa would have had to tell her attorney. So, if somebody called me and told me that about you, I'd be like, yeah, so why are you so concerned? Like, are you concerned about potential business or other dealings you have
Right.
with them? Because
Right.
other than the fact that you all just happen to be on the show together and you're friends, or quote friends unquote, for the purpose of the show, you don't know anything. And I don't know what, if anything, I could tell you other than the same thing that you could do, which is Google and see if anything comes up.
Right. But I think there was more there. I mean,
Mhm.
I think they all knew more than they let on.
Oh, no, I agree that I think they all knew more, but I'm saying Lisa's reaction, and you and I talked about this offline. I think that Lisa's thing with the lawyers lent itself to excuse me, more questions about potential business. And I'm not saying anything illegal, but just having potentially done business with her and being concerned about the impact of that on her. And so, and I'm not in any way saying anything disparaging about Lisa other than us generally being annoyed with her as a character on the show. But there was just something that just didn't sit right. And I don't think it sat right with anybody, quite frankly. I don't think there's anybody, whether it's the other characters on the show or anybody in the YouTube or vlogosphere, who have talked about this show. There's literally nobody that whole thing sits normal with, especially given her making a big deal out of the number of attorneys she felt so inclined to call. Like, all of that was just very, it just reeked of something more in terms of her involvement with Jen, legal or not. Um, but anyway, so the luncheon obviously wraps up. Eventually they have to go home. I mean, Meredith came back to the table with Lisa. Nothing really changed. I mean, Lisa in that instance, and all the histrionics was, the living, breathing definition, as she is in most scenes, of a hit dog will holler, because everything Meredith said basically applied to everybody at that table except for herself and Jennie, because they were the only ones who kept it 100. So Lisa, whether she was trying to have a moment, or again she was a hit dog and didn't have enough sense to try to contain herself because she is such a freaking Karen, which I think is more of the case. There was just no reason for her to say anything. I think it's just that her Karen antics got the best of her, and she had a moment where she literally could have just sat there with her mouth closed, and she didn't. And it is what it is. Okay, so episode 15, the main focus of this, we know, is the Wild Rose party, because of course it brings the women together for some more drama, and it was going to be the first time they were all in the same place at the same time after the faux luncheon, because I think the faux luncheon pretty much ended on a kind of, yeah, okay, at this point, we've been here taping for however long, and everybody's tired, and we just need to go. And I could imagine, however we may feel about what Jen Shaw did or didn't do, I could imagine that that was a very emotionally and probably physically taxing on her. Because if I was looking at the type of situation she was looking at, especially within that first couple of weeks, I wouldn't have been able to sleep at night. So,
But how many parties is Whitney gonna have for this thing? Like, how many launch parties or just sell the
well,
product?
well, I think the first, a couple of weeks ago when we saw her, that was a photo shoot, which is still funny to me, because however much Jennie may, not be exactly a favorite, she gives some lines ever so often. And when she said, well, there's a dog in the picture.
And I mean, but there were drinks and there were a bunch of people. Some
Yeah,
of the same
so,
people who were at this thing.
well, we also know it's COVID, so you're pretty much just gonna have the same people who are cleared for you to breathe on. But so, well, let's get up to that. There really wasn't a whole lot. I just, the notes I have is, of course we saw a bit of each woman's life leading up to that. The only thing that really stood out to me was Heather giving her partner a gorgeous car. I'm here for that. I think these are some of the moments with Heather that, even when she gets a bit into Karen mode, that redeem her with the fans, even with her sometimes, with the Jen stuff and whatever, is that um at the end of the day, you Heather, if there's nothing else that most people, especially women, can identify in Heather, even when she gets on your nerves, is that we would all like to have a friend like Heather.
She's a
Um,
good friend. She's a good friend.
yeah, even to a fault. But we would all like to have a friend like Heather. I mean, and even her generosity, and we've seen this even in the extravagant way that she like did the shower for the whole creepy thing in her office with all those women getting pregnant and having kids at the same time, which is weird. But the shower, and then the other event after, giving them all the card, all the little what were they, Mercedes SUVs for the babies or whatever. So she appears to be very generous with the people around her. And it would, and it kind of speaks to the fact that this is not just a show, it's real life too, because you and I have been in this game long enough, and watched not just the shows but the social media and all of that. And for them to be this far, well into season 2, and how much people will take 5 cents for diming you out, nobody ever comes out and says anything about Heather, current or former employees.
No, you're right about that. You're right about that. Yeah.
So,
And
because
I bet
everybody has
you
had
there's
at
a
least
lot.
something said about them, but not Heather.
Right. And I bet you there's a lot.
Hmm.
But nobody's going to say anything. But I bet you there's a
Yeah.
lot.
I mean, even if it's just like whatever drama with her and her husband, or maybe how she was when she was trying to be the good Mormon wife and they were married, because remember, Heather is desperate to be liked. Her insecurity is obvious, what have you. So I would imagine that when she was trying to be the perfect Mormon wife of like literal Mormon royalty billionaires, I wouldn't be surprised if she wasn't the nicest person in the world. Not necessarily mean girl, because I don't think she has that in her because of her insecurities, but certainly just like that attitude of, being better and whatever, because she's like, has, I'm a Mormon and I'm following all these rules and I married the first guy I ever slept with, and whatever. And then on top of that, him having money and all the trappings that go along with that. I mean, especially when you consider that she went along with her family and didn't speak to her sister for umpteen years. So I think that speaks to the level to which she bought into that whole life, even if she was just doing it because she thought that made her a good wife. So there's probably some good stories about her that aren't, or some people that probably couldn't stand her when she was fully steeped in that life.
But they're not talking.
But they're not talking. So good for them. And again, his family does have a lot of money, and he and her, divorce notwithstanding, seem to have a decent relationship from what we've seen. So it's good to have people afraid of you if you're on if you're on reality TV.
That's
uh,
right.
because apparently Mary had people afraid of her only as long as they stayed at the church. Other than that, it's like open season with telling her business. Um, so Lisa and her kids, she's sending her son to the prom. It was cute, but she gets on my nerves so bad. It was just hard to appreciate. And I get it. You have a son, she has a son, and we sent them to the prom and we were probably annoying the heck out of them, wanting to be in all the pictures and whatever. So she was being a mom. It is what it is. Um let's see, Meredith, when she was talking to Mary, and Mary used the fake Asian accent,
That was insane too. That
and
was
Meredith, instead of saying, hey, that's not cool, she just said, okay, well, let's not do a character. No, that's not doing a character, that's being racist.
But once again, Mary has been doing all of this all along, and the only person who called her out was Jen Shaw.
Yeah.
Nobody else calls her out. Nobody else is like, girl, you need to stop. Just stop it.
Exactly. And people, and I get it. Like, let's be clear. There people have issues with going into so-called seedy areas or urban areas, and we know that urban is just another nice way of saying majority black or Hispanic or whatever, and going, of all races, including black women or Hispanic women, especially if you're by yourself and walking through a group and what have you. But there's also a such thing as front porch conversations and back porch conversations. And most of us know the difference. So, Mary, even if you felt that way, that's a back porch conversation, not a front porch conversation. Even if
Right.
you viewed Jen in that moment as a fellow woman of color, doesn't matter because she's not your friend. You don't know her like that to be having a front porch conversation. or
It's
rather be having a back porch conversation with her.
a back
So you put
porch
your foot in your mouth, and I believe you
conversation.
said it.
A back porch conversation, but in front of or among a whole bunch of people who don't even understand the conversation to
Exactly.
begin with. Yeah, yeah.
And in the case of Jen, and and I know people gave Jen a lot of crap for this, but in fairness to Jen, Jen has black sons who she acknowledges as black sons. Mary has a black son who she wishes was white, because Mary has made clear what her preference is. She
But
tries to act like
can
she
we
don't know
also
her
call it?
husband is white. I mean,
But
that she tries to act like she doesn't know her husband is black.
wait, did you see how her husband carried her when she was on her? With
Oh, he
this is
clowns
going back.
her all the time.
I mean, he's over it. Like she can't even get him on camera.
Mm-mm.
She's trying to
Now,
call him on the
granted, she don't
phone.
seem to like him. She doesn't seem to like him either. But I think what happened is she played him a little bit too hard to the left one too many times on season one. So on season two, he's giving it back to her, because remember, she clowned him several times on season one, especially at the reunion. I can't remember what she said, but she clowned him to the point of kind of pissing him off, because he sat back like, I know this bitch didn't, but he let it go. And I think now he's reached that point, especially we're talking pandemic. They haven't lived in the same place at the same time for long periods of time. And now he comes back and these cameras are here or whatever. So he's like, okay, if I'm gonna be on camera, I'm just gonna be a crotchety old ass. We ain't like that, and she know it, so whatever.
And I think she feels kind of crazy because she doesn't have any family to film with or any people,
Mm,
yeah, to film with, and it's kind of unfortunate.
exactly. And it's not, and she's not endearing herself to having any, because instead of her just kind of playing the family thing off and just, if nothing else, there's court documents that pretty much reveal what the relationship is between the family and Robert, and of course, by extension, her, because she's married to him. So there's really no reason for her not to be honest about why her and the family don't get along. In fact, she doesn't even really have to explain it, because again, if nothing else, there's court documents that went all the way to the damn Utah Supreme Court that kind of gives insight, in several court cases, quite frankly. But that one in particular, that gives some insight into why her and this family are so on the outs. But instead of her just simply saying, because again, you ain't got to go deep, and if people want to go deep, they can look it up. It's out there. She could just say, look, things have never been right between me and my family. Obviously, since I married my husband, because of issues between them and my husband, and by extension, me, because I'm married to him. It really, that is a true statement that you could say to literally anybody, and they would believe, because you you married, and not just you married him, but he married you too. So because it's like we always put the responsibility on the woman, but this man was married to her grandmother for 22 years. She dies in January of 1997. And by August of 1998, he has helped her granddaughter secure a divorce from the man she was married to, and then married her himself. So even if we take it away from like just like Mary, 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 and talk about the 46-year-old man who was involved in this whole mess with this 23, 24-year-old woman, it's some shaky stuff. And even if they were angry with him, or her mother in particular, even if her mother were just upset with him just about marrying her daughter, forget all the other stuff, which is there's a lot. And of course, her daughter stayed married to him. It would stand to reason that their relationship would be fractured. But true to Mary, and this is where we talk about the whole issue of Mary lying, she just flat out lies about something that anybody could find out with a few clicks, saying there's a will and the grandmama basically willed her to the man, and her mother's just mad because she wanted to marry him and whatever. Your mother believes this man killed her mother, so much so that they had the body exhumed. You don't go from, I don't know anybody who has gone from believing that someone killed their loved one to suddenly believing that they didn't, unless there is definitive proof, i.e., someone else admits that they did it, or an autopsy reveals, no, your mother really did die from XYZ. So if her mother believed that in 1997, she still believes it in 2022. On top of it, you married him, you guys squandered the estate, and now you're on a reality show clowning me. Like, she's nuts. She is nuts.
Yeah, she is.
And it's sad that she has no one, but she's nuts. And I mean, honestly, that son, if she wasn't providing him with whatever little fancy life he wants to have, he treats her like he's over her too. Now, granted, he's like 18, 19, so we know that teenagers, because technically he's a teenager and he's a teenage boy, and his mother is extra and on a reality show, which I'm sure is embarrassing to him in any number of ways. So him acting that way towards her could just be the typical mother son thing, but it's still not a great look.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. We
So,
agree
okay.
on that. We agree.
Yeah. So, okay. So, back down to, so out of the rabbit hole, because we get into them when we deal with Mary and all of them. So to the party, Whitney has a party for the official launch of Wild Rose. She does have product there. I wish she had been smart enough to do some more of a product demonstration. However, I will say this. um if we know that Bravo got smart after Bethany, and after Lisa Vanderpump, and that if there is, I don't know what degree it is, or maybe there's a certain percentage of time or what have you, but if a product that you developed is too heavily promoted, Bravo does get a piece.
Well, in the book that I read, I think they said 10% of the
Yeah.
profit.
So, but I would imagine, and you and I being lawyers, we know there's always loopholes to this, because if you can, you certainly don't want anybody owning a percentage of your profits, and certainly not in perpetuity. So I would imagine that there is probably something in that contract as it relates to your ability to, obviously mention what you're doing in your place of business and whatever, because it is your life. So we can't pretend that your life doesn't exist. We can't pretend that Heather's Beauty Bar doesn't exist, or that Whitney is starting this business. It probably comes down to how much of it you can show in terms of demonstrating, labeling, branding, and all of that stuff, where it turns into a full-blown commercial. I can't imagine that attorney with half a brain wouldn't be able to maneuver that.
But I find it notable that like she's the only one this season that has something like that. I mean, even Heather isn't really pushing her business, but her business it wouldn't be
But
that
Heather's
same
business is great.
situation.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
She
right.
she had an existing business that's doing great, and I'm sure shot even higher because at the end of the day, Heather's business is the type of business where she really doesn't have to promote. She just says what it is and where it is, and of course people are going to want to go just because. Meredith Mark, she has an actual brick and mortar store. She'll wear her stuff or whatever. I had a friend that went to Utah right before Christmas. She sent me pictures from in front of Meredith Mark's store because obviously she went. So when you're like Meredith or Heather, if you've it's kind of the Lisa Vanderpump thing too. If you've got brick and mortar and you mention it just enough or have events at your place, because remember they've been to Heather's business a number of times. Season one, Jen would go there all the time. That's where her and Jen would get together. Jen would have like events at her house, but every time she and Heather got together, like at least 3 or 4 times, it was at Heather's business. So, but I will say this: unlike Sheree, who had a fashion show with no fashions, Heather did have products. I mean, not Heather. Whitney did have products.
Yeah, but I mean, the whole thing is just weird to me because, you know, it just looked like a happy hour in a restaurant. And
Oh,
then
well, absolutely. I
no
would imagine.
signage really, no
Yeah.
logo, no. I mean, I still couldn't pick that product out
Well,
at
yeah.
a
Well,
Ulta or
remember
something.
yeah, definitely. I mean, we know the name because that was the whole point. It was the rebrand. So the name is Wild Rose. And so that's why she put that on there. Remember, we looked it up. And yeah, she probably should have put a picture or something of the product, like blown up. And again, for all we know, that probably that may have been there, because again, like I just talked about, depending on what agreement she has with Bravo in terms of maybe not wanting to give a portion of her product, that may impact her signage and whatever. She doesn't get away with the same stuff that Lisa Vanderpump and Candy and Bethany get away with because they had already slid in there before Bravo.
But what does a jungle have to do with Wild Rose? She tells the people, I'm having a party to launch my brand. I want it to look like a jungle.
I guess
Huh?
because it's wild, in the
Girl,
wild.
that's, you know what? She needs people because if that's
Oh,
what
she
it is,
1000% needs people.
she
I
needs
I
people.
100% think that's what it was, because that's just me putting my creative side of my brain on. But it, that's and you know me, like I love themes for everything. So I picked up on it not because I'm incredibly smart, but because I like doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, not everybody's gonna not everybody's gonna get that. But I do think that's what it was. It was kind of supposed to be wild, and I'm the wild rose. Because just like her wearing a reddish rose colored dress totally made sense. And of course, wanting everybody to be in beiges and creams, and she stands out wearing the red. I got that. But I think because the products themselves are so small, I would hope, maybe we just didn't see it, but I would hope that they were like there was larger signage and all kinds of stuff, of the products around, because I went on the website, and because of the nature of the products, because they're not like cosmetics, they're like the little beauty stuff or what. You remember, you and I looked it up. So everything is very small. It's not even like as big as, at least when you have hair care, you've got like these big containers and shampoo bottles and whatever. Everything is very tiny because it's like cosmetic sized. It's just, serums and stuff. But
But it's like when you do branding, right?
mhm,
You know, people will associate colors with a brand or shapes
I agree.
or something.
Which is
There's
why
something
I
missing there.
loved the original. I just feel like I just like the original name. I just liked, I thought it was delicate and it was pretty, and it's a facial product. So you think delicate and soft and pretty because that's what you want your skin to be. So I liked that original, something like Lily and something. I loved it. I get the reason why the person suggested what they did, and plus, I think it might have, although she's not saying it, I think some of it might have had to do with the fact that the business was with her dad, so that may have been part of it too, because they aren't speaking, and there may be some legal stuff, but yeah, she needs people, and we know she needs people. I mean, we saw that with the whole thing with the husband and the money, and then the $20,000 photo shoot that looked like it was in her house with a bunch of sheets, so, and a dog. So okay, we've been in the weeds way too long. So let's go to what we're really here to talk about, the confrontation. So I don't even remember most of what everybody else wore. I remember Jennie's. I liked it. But I usually like what she wears when they dress up because she dresses for her body. She knows she's got a good body. She shows it off. So I don't remember much about it. I just remember it was like body hugging and she's good there. I thought that Whitney looked very pretty. I thought it was in keeping with what she was doing. She wants to stand out. She's young. It was a young look. She was fine. I don't have an issue with that. Mary, I don't remember what she had on because she was stressing about her coat. So all I remember is the coat.
It
And
was
I'm
a hot
like,
mess. It was a hot
I
mess.
was like, Mary, your events are not all that for you to be tripping about a coat check situation when everybody else seems to be walking around with or without coats just fine. And if it's all like that, just find a chair and put it on there because this is during COVID. This is also you got to remember this is which is probably part. We got to remember this is probably part and parcel of this because all of this is contrived just to bring them together. So I hate that we went all in the weeds about this party when we know that this is during COVID and it's really not necessarily about a launch. It was just a reason to have a party because this is a housewives show. Like they do all the extravagant dinner parties on Beverly Hills where here they come up with little charities and stuff. And so that's what they did with this. But considering that
But
was
be
during
clear, it was a happy hour, not a party.
well,
I just
yeah,
really need to be clear about that. It was a
but
happy
e-
hour, not a party.
but either way, we know like during COVID, and you got a full production team, the cast, their spouses, who I never want to see in a group together again. Not all there are husbands who do the housewife husbands thing well. The Atlanta husbands do it well. The New Jersey husbands do it well. The Beverly Hills husbands do it well. Not all of them, only a couple of them, like Mauricio, PK, and I think one other. Harry Hamlin sometimes when he's with them they do it well, but other than that, this crew, they're not gelled enough, not to mention the fact that Meredith's husband is just an attention seeker, and I don't know, was he high? Like it was just too much. Like he's always too much, but this time he was like on 1000 of all of my nerves. Like all the other husbands looked downright uncomfortable with the way he was acting, especially Coach Shaw, because he's still, shell shocked and his black is still cracked. And he's just like, look, she needs a check because we got bills. So I'm here and whatever. But this dude is freaking crazy. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but okay. So we have that. Okay, so yeah, so I think they just had enough people there, like you said, the same people that were there that were at her photo shoot. I think that's just a COVID thing. Okay, so Jennie comes in. I think she came in with somebody because either that or she talked to the camera. She told us about the shoes. Now we do know, like in real life, Heather gave the purse back, but maybe Heather hadn't given the purse back at that point. But Heather did say on Twitter that she didn't accept the purse. So maybe she didn't accept it right then and there, because remember, her and Mary were fighting by the time Mary left Vail.
Right, right.
So I think maybe she was just co-signing Jennie keeping the shoes just for the hell of it, but she didn't keep her purse. So at any rate, okay, so she brings the shoes. I'm not effing with you. Plus, I don't want your used shoes. So she calls them all in the group together, which some people have a problem with. I don't, because Mary made the comment in front of everybody. So I'm going to address you in front of everybody.
But I
Plus,
hope she cleared it because it was a. I hope she cleared it with Whitney because technically, that's a business event. That's
yeah,
not a
but we
let's get
know this
together
wasn't
and
a business
kiki.
event. This was a
Well, you
housewives.
know, if you want to pretend like it was a business event, it's your relaunching
Yeah, but
with.
we know that even Whitney wasn't, because she was sitting in that room. And remember, Whitney wasn't even pressed about them leaving too fast, because she was the one who said, well, I think we need to talk this out or whatever. So she knew what the job was. So at any rate, she takes them all in the room and she addresses the situation. Now, I didn't expect any different from Mary. Plus, we saw the previews. We know that she was going to either double down on it or be flip about it or whatever, because Mary she's definitely not going to say she's sorry. And if she does say she's sorry, it will be an I'm sorry if you were. So, because as far as she's concerned, you're being an ass. And on top of it, despite the fact that Mary made the comment in front of everybody and would have had no issue with addressing her in front of everybody, Mary didn't appreciate Jennie addressing her in front of everybody. So
Right.
she was already over it, right or wrong, just the fact that Mary just the mere fact that you're on a show where obviously everything's going to be done with the group, but she did it in front of a group, and um, Mary didn't appreciate that. So that was putting her off, in my opinion, that was putting her off really embracing what Jen was saying to her anyway. Then you combine it with the fact that Meredith's problematic ass, and mind you, she has been backpedaling on Twitter ever since, but that Meredith basically, gosh, I can't remember what exactly she said, but she pretty much like did that whole thing of kind of defending it, where she, what did she said, something like that was just her way of telling you look beautiful, or something like that. And it's just like, shh, this isn't your fight, boo. And not to mention, somebody says they're offended, you go with it. You ain't got to
I
agree,
mean,
because
Meredith is riding with Mary in a way that is completely unexpected for me.
I don't know what that is, because for whatever friendship Meredith thinks she has with Mary does not think that highly of any of them. Now, of the group, she probably views Meredith as closest to the level of those women that she would deal with, in terms of because again, Meredith is, for one of a better way of putting it, she is the grande dame of the group. She's the Vanderpump of the group. She's the Caroline Manzo of the group, so to speak. Even if she's not exactly the most exciting, she still seems to carry that, have that air of respect from the other women in the group, which I think is something that Mary can get with, because that is who she believes she is. But a real friend, no, because Mary doesn't like any of these women. She thinks they're all beneath her. We know that.
Right. Right. But does Meredith like her?
That part I'm not sure of. I think Meredith is so steeped in her own idea of victimhood as it relates to the Jen situation, which was then um kind of made even worse unwittingly on Lisa's part. It was kind of made even worse when Lisa cozied up to Jen. I don't think that Lisa fully appreciates how much that bothers Meredith. And part of it, I think, is because Meredith, in her zeal to maintain this air of unbothered yet bothered, that she says it but still is like, but I'm not even going to engage in that. No, that ish really bothers you. That's why you keep mentioning it to her. And you are tired of her trying to explain it to you. And what Meredith really wants to say, but for whatever reason, she has Meredith, and maybe she doesn't because she does consider herself to be the mature big sister thing. But I think how Meredith truly feels is it should be Jen or me. And her relationship with the other ladies really isn't on that level.
Yeah,
So
I
I
can see that. I can definitely
yes,
see that.
so I think that she does her and Mary don't she doesn't have a specific issue with Mary, and Mary has not expressed having a specific issue with her. So I think it just kind of works out that way, that with Mary kind of viewing Meredith as the only one in the group that is on her level, and Meredith not really having a whole lot of respect for the other women, even if she doesn't come out and express it that way. I think that that's what the real connection is. I don't know if I would call that friendship, but considering that they're coworkers and have that sort of commonality, I guess that is sort of a friendship, or if nothing else, they're work friends. That's the best way that I
I
could
see
put it.
that. I
Hmm.
see that.
Yeah, because there's just nothing else she has in common with anybody else really, and I don't think there's any specific beef with Jennie one way or the other. I think Jennie, she just views Jennie as Lisa's friend, and so I'm not even gonna get engaged with that because she knows Lisa well enough to know that Lisa is a territorial friend. If you're, it's funny how that works because Meredith knows Lisa well enough to know that Lisa's a territorial friend and that it would piss her off if she became friends with one of her friends. Yet Lisa doesn't seem to give that same grace with other people because remember, she as soon as Angie, I think the relationship between Angie and Lisa was over the minute Angie became friends with Whitney. It would not have even mattered with that whole catering faux pas. She, in her mind, she was kicking her to the curb the minute she made friends with Whitney.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I
and then
think
it's
Lisa
like,
is only friendly with Whitney to use her and to have her as a bone carrier in her pocket as a charade, but not because she actually likes her. Lisa is another one with some very high ideas about herself and made extremely clear in season one, episode what, two, that she feels that Lisa and Heather are beneath her. And I don't think that's ever changed. They just have an uneasy truce when they need to.
well, the whole paddleboard little date, the chemistry is not there,
Mm-mm,
even though they were
no.
both there. It's
And and on top of that, the chemistry was even further thrown off because despite the fact that her face is incapable of showing it, she was seething with with the whole notion of Whitney going to speak to Cameron. And I mean, and she said as much to us in the confessional because apparently there was nothing that Whitney was was gonna tell Lisa that she didn't already know, if Lisa has been allegedly been friends with Cameron for 9 years. So the only thing that Whitney was really telling Lisa is, I spoke to him for myself, and I do believe you. There's a lot of ish with this chick. And then, of course, Lisa doubled down on the fact that she 100% believes Cameron, even though, again, she waffles with that when she's around Mary. But, again, that's Lisa. So, speaking of Lisa and Meredith, well, starting with Meredith. So, we move on to the shoes. Quick and dirty. I actually got to go with Jennie on thinking the shoes was used. I'm not talking about the whole idea of keeping them or not. I think I said this to you in that episode. The way that Mary made it sound, she did make it sound like the shoes were used, because she said, now it doesn't mean I wouldn't have kept them, but she did say, oh, these were just some shoes I already had and I grabbed on my way out the door. In fact, when Jennie thanked her for the shoes, she's like, oh, they were no big deal. I already had them. Well, even when Jennie thought the shoes were new, you're the one who told her you already had them. Now, that's not the reason why Jennie gave them back to her. She just happened to toss that in when she was saying, speaking her piece. But girl, she's going by what you said. Irrelevant though it may be, you did say that.
Okay,
So,
so here's the thing. Jennie likes stunts,
yeah,
and
I mean, it was definitely a
you
stunt.
know,
I mean, that was a
be
Portia,
mad about this.
Kenya
Be
Moore. That was all of it.
right. Be mad about the slanty eyes comment. Be mad that she was messy at your lunch.
And
Be mad
definitely,
that
and
she
give her the
lied.
shoes back. You don't even have to
Yeah.
talk about the shoes. In fact, my thing is, I don't F with you. You making that comment and then trying to lie on everybody at my lunch was the final straw. I don't even want you to think that you could give me something and whatever, because the last thing that I want, and we know Mary's petty, the last thing that I want is, for heaven forbid, you see me walking around in these shoes, and we know Mary would be like, oh, you got all these problems with me talking about your slanty eyes, but yet you gonna wear them shoes I gave you. No, I'm not gonna give you that satisfaction. You know why I know Mary would be that petty? Because I'm that petty. So
No, let me tell you how petty. Let me tell you how petty I am. I would show up with a slip from the Salvation Army about how I donated those used shoes in your name so you
mhm,
can get the tax write off, girl. This is yours.
yeah. And me and you, when we decide to get petty, we'll get super petty, because if we really want to go there, I donate it to a charity that specifically deals with children of Asian descent. That way, all the children with slanted eyes could get a little something from these shoes, since you think they're so cute. Okay. So, yeah, but the bottom line is, I get why she gave them back. It was almost like her giving the shoes back would have actually been a cool period at the end of the sentence if she said it like you and I said it. Because when she said that, she basically took the smoke out of her own stunt, because she didn't execute the stunt properly. Those shoes should have been at the period at the end of the sentence, almost like a by the way, like, and by the way, here's your shoes, because I don't ever want you to think that you gave me something, since I don't mess with you like that. That would have been the way you handle the shoes, like literally a mic drop moment. But when she said they weren't meant for me and they were used and whatever, like, you tried to read, and it fell flat, and you literally ended up taking the coolness out of your own mic drop.
But like, what's crazy is how Jen Shaw like takes the shoes. Now, I also know that as a business move, these shoes have had a high profile in the filming.
No.
I am sure that like Jen Shaw is like, I can take these shoes and resell them probably for more than they're worth because they had a guest
100%.
role. Yeah.
Because I am sure Jen is not wearing those shoes. They ain't even talk about the size of the damn shoes. Jen them put them shoes on that website that Erica Jane tried to sell her clothes on, and the judge shut her down last December 2020, when she was trying to have her little divorce fire sale after when the bankruptcy court seized their assets.
Yeah, because these shoes have so much notoriety. They've been
Yeah,
in
but
like
remember,
four
there's like,
different scenes.
but there's websites like, I mean, even if she didn't put it on like that site, I mean, hell, even the real ain't all that cheap.
You're
And
right
I know
about
because I've been on
that.
that site.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
You're
because
right
I
about
keep a couple of bags on the watch list on the regular. So,
that.
and if they aren't scraped up, and we do know, like she said, remember she Jen tried to be all funky, I mean, not Jen, Mary tried to be all funky and say something about like the receipt or the paperwork is in the box. Good, because that's even better, because remember, with Louboutins you can get the red sole on your shoes replaced as long as you got your receipt. You send them back, that's how your bottoms stay red no matter how long you wear them, until you wear the
Yeah.
shoe out itself.
But it's all just so super messy,
It's
weird.
all super messy and superficial. And bottom line, even though once again we went down the rabbit hole about the shoes, Jennie, I don't have an issue with her giving the shoes back. She just didn't execute it properly, because the shoes should have literally been like, I mean, literally treat it like a mic drop, like just drop that bag on the table and be like, and by the way, here's your little used shit too. Don't, heaven forbid you walk around acting like you gave me something. Give them to one of your church members. So, because that's the added insult. You sitting up with a church with like 12 members in it, and you walking around with, most, like she says, she got all these businesses. The overwhelming majority of those businesses are closed. And that was pre-COVID. That is just Robert running stuff into the ground. And then, the businesses are just old. So like the restaurants aren't open, any of that. And the last one that was, COVID took that out. But and as we saw, like, ain't nobody up in that church listening to Mary talk crazy. So if anything, sell some stuff to pay your bills, keep the lights on up at the church house. Uh Either way, we know that the producer set this up, it just because ultimately it really wasn't even, I don't even think the bottom line is Lisa, I mean, is Mary and Jennie. I think this sets up the showdown we've been waiting to see with Meredith and Lisa, because this is when okay, so we dealt the shoe thing. How funny was it when Meredith managed to make this all about her somehow? And I felt like it was one of those moments where I was like, I know I didn't walk out the room and I didn't change the channel by accident, where Meredith, who was basically low key defending Mary, somehow managed once again. Now it was relevant when she did it at the luncheon, but somehow once again flipped the script and went back into the speech that we gave her props for at the luncheon, but at this point was completely out of place when she went into the whole Jen Shaw thing, and basically like, now I have a reason for not being her friend, and because I'm not in that place right now, but you all, and what I was like, how the hell did we get here? Did you, maybe you can help me with that pivot, because I missed it.
I I really can't. I really feel like at this point some people, including Meredith, are desperate to be part of. I imagine, okay, so you have Jen Shaw, who has a storyline whether she wants it or not, right?
Hmm. Because we know that. had she not been arrested, she would be leading the charge on this Mary situation.
Yeah. You have Mary, who, like, that's set in stone. You have Whitney, who is doing her whole product line.
Hmm.
You have
But
Jennie, who's just
still being
Asian.
meaningfully engaged in the Mary thing because she came up with a good role for herself by being the go-between. So
Right.
yeah.
You have Jennie, who's just Asian.
Yeah,
You have
basically.
Heather. You have
Jenny is the
Heather.
replacement for Jen when Jen goes to jail.
Right. You have Heather, who's just being Heather.
Hmm.
You have nothing because your son's stuff backfired on you.
Just
Nobody
fell
really likes
flat.
your husband. Nobody really likes your husband or can figure out whatever he's doing. So and nobody really respects you enough to be listening to about how your feelings are hurt over Jen Shaw and how you have to keep being together.
And also
So
they're
you
over it.
have to do something. So you have to do something. Like
But you
so
know what? It also feels like what she did. Now I remember what happened right before that. And it also goes into that whole like apologist thing she was doing for Mary. Remember when Jenny was pretty much like, well, I've said everything I had to say, and Mary was like, well, I'm leaving. I'm not, whatever. And Whitney spoke up and said, I really think that, I mean, it might not have, she didn't say it in the most artful way because it's uncomfortable and they are very, very white, but she tried. She said, I actually think we need to get this out because we can't be saying this kind of stuff to each other. Remember? She said, so Whitney said we can't be
right.
saying this kind of stuff to each other, which was very clear that she was like, let's just deal with all racism. And that is
Right.
and then that's when it, and that was either right before or right after Lisa threw Mary under the bus. Yes, because after she said that, that's when Lisa threw Mary under the bus. That's how Meredith managed to make it by herself, because then Lisa threw Mary under the bus and said, well, there was that thing you said about Jen in the kitchen, which of course Mary denied, and the Bravo people ever. Oh my God, this production team is like they need the production team from Potomac and Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. They need to get them for Atlanta because they are fabulous. They went immediately, was just like blah 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 Mexican blah 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 cartel. And so and then made it so bad I forgot the part where she said the thing about the braids.
I
I
mean,
remembered
the
her
whole
saying the
thing is just
Mexican
so
cartel
crazy.
part, but I feel like when they did the initial cut, when they showed us that in Veil, I swear I don't remember them showing the braids, but because those producers are fantastic, they made sure to give us that little extra piece because I swear she did not mention them braids the first time. Or well, she said it, but I'm saying the first cut that we saw of that when her and Lisa were talking, I promise I don't remember that braids thing because I know I would have never forgotten that because that it was awful, but it was funny because it was just like, girl, you went there with the braids.
And but I mean, and the fur coat and the braids.
She
Yes.
said,
What she
oh
said?
my
She
gosh.
said, "Girl, I know you didn't go to jail." Is that what she said? Yeah, I know you didn't go to jail because
Oh
you
my
had the braids and the fur coat. What? What?
yes. Oh my gosh. And so that's when Meredith, which again is, I commend Whitney for trying, even though it may not have been the most articulate way. But again, these are uncomfortable conversations. Um, but Meredith, in her ultimate Karen, I think it was twofold now that I really put it into perspective. It was not only making it about her with reiterating her speech from the luncheon, but it was also her pivoting away from the race conversation, which was clearly what Whitney was trying to say. Like, we got to deal with this stuff. We can't say it. So that was her way of switching the conversation and, whatever. Because let's face it, Meredith knows, her and her Caucasian sisters, she knows they don't want to talk about it. So if they could find a way not to talk about it, and, Whitney had enough trouble even trying to engage them in the conversation. And now we got to get back to pretending that we're actually at a function. Mary is threatening to walk out anyway. So let me just bring up this whole Jen thing and her braids and jail. And and
Crazy.
so Mary decides she's gonna leave, and of course Meredith, decides she's gonna leave too. Um, and then we have the Lisa Meredith thing at the end, which we're gonna pick up. The show's gonna pick up with next week, because obviously we know that that goes a lot deeper, and it's just the same thing with Meredith. You're not being a friend. Lisa, you're not being a friend. Meredith once again telling Lisa she is sick and damn tired of listening to her yell in her ear, because we do know that Lisa does position herself every time to be next to Meredith, because nobody can be next to Meredith except for her. And then she starts yelling, and apparently Meredith's ears are over it. Now, we forgot the fashion. Well, we didn't forget it. It's is burned into my
I
eyeballs.
was waiting. I was
The
waiting for it. I saw
fashion
you post about it. I was
foolishness
waiting for
of
it.
the evening. Meredith's lilac suit. I mean, was that a we know that Brooks is trying to do blazers or something like Tierra Marie from Love and Hip Hop. It was that a Brooks Marks original. I mean, that was worse. If it is possible, that was, and I am not exaggerating, that was absolutely worse than what Sheree wore to Cynthia's wedding, because at least Sheree's whole feathers didn't fall off. Now, she was
Now,
losing
okay, so
pieces.
let me.
Auntie Daniva mentioned that, but like literally at one point, wasn't Mary holding an entire feather from Meredith's suit?
Okay, so here's the thing about the. As bad as the blazer was, the
Oh, the
part of
pants.
the suit, yeah, the pants did me in. As bad as that blazer was, the pants were just illegal. They showed her stomping away from a conversation, and I'm just like, why?
I
Why?
pulled it up, and I can't remember, because I posted it on the FNDD. Everybody, if you haven't already, come on, join the FNDD. Had a huge uptick in membership. I meant to tell you that. Who knew so many people from Africa in particular were interested? When it was all, I had a barrage of people join. Remember I told you I had a barrage of people join when I posted about Greg Leaks.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
huge numbers. I think like literally 50 to 100 people joined within that couple of weeks, between saying he was transitioning and the actual farewell. When I posted the Megan Good Devon Franklin thing, which I didn't need, as you saw, I didn't even engage in the ignorant debates that people have been engaging in about it online. I just put it up there, said a few things about it or whatever. I would estimate probably about 50 to 75 people have joined in the weeks since then. And of that, about 80 to 85% of that, because I can watch the analytics, are from Africa because of that story.
That's interesting.
It
That's
is
weird.
very interesting, but you know what it is I think it's the whole religious thing, and I'm assuming he
Okay.
probably does heavy traveling and promotion there, because America, as we know, American ministers, gospel choirs, and all of that are very, very popular in Africa.
Yeah, he might be popular, but he's a mess, girl. He's a mess.
Basically, he used her and now he's done. I don't even get me into that whole thing because nobody knew who the hell he was until he married her. Meanwhile, she's been a fixture in Hollywood for over 25 years. So, who's zooming who here? But I think you and I already see each other. We ain't even got to go into that. Anywho, so Meredith's outfit, which, like I said before, we talked about the other thing, Meredith's outfit, I got either off Instagram or somewhere where, and you saw it, I zoomed in, made sure you all could see it, and everything about it was bad. I mean, it was ugly anyway, but ugly and constructed badly. Because like you could look at something on the red carpet and it be ugly. It's like generally not your taste, or it's just tasteless. But you're like, okay, well, Gucci or Versace or Balmain or whoever made that well is just ugly. No, everything about this was bad. And the color didn't even look good on her anyway. Like the jacket, it was clear that it was a regular blazer, and not even a high end blazer, like, just basic as basic can be. And the ostrich feathers were from Michael's, and they basically glued them on there. You could see where the jacket was like twisting and turning because it couldn't support the weight of the feathers. And then the pants, when you zoom in on those, it was literally a piece of ribbon sewn around about 5 or 6 inches from the bottom of the pants, and then the feathers or whatever, like, sewn into the ribbon. I mean, it was, I don't even know why I'm going that deep. The fact that it was horrific is beyond. And I mean, and she's worn bad stuff before. We talked about this in the last episode, that when it comes to their dressy affairs, whether it's formal, semi-formal, luncheon, or whatever, she uses those as an opportunity to convince us that she's some kind of fashionista. Her confessional looks, even that craziness that she wore to the reunion last year, that was 4 or 5 years off trend, badly done, too young. I mean, just across the board bad. Even what was that? Like episode 1, the first party, when she wore like another big pink feathered dress. The first, yes,
Oh yeah,
yes,
yeah.
she did. She loves dressing like a bird, because even, and then she followed that up when they went to that first trip at the ski lodge, the one where we found out the first time that Mary couldn't ski. That was the one where Heather confronted Lisa for the very first time about lying on her about her college years, and Whitney revealed that Lisa threatened her with, putting stuff out there about her and her husband. So we're talking early season 1. But again, Meredith in these feathers, she wore a big pink jacket with feathers on it there. So she's always with some big crazy nonsense. And I vaguely recall that she wore something big, pink, and crazy to the party, that, remember, at the rich lady's house, like the really really rich lady, the one last
Yes,
season.
yes.
um she wore
And, and
something.
then and then I want you to flash back to her confessional with the bright orange satin, whatever that
Uh-huh.
is.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
It is, yeah, it's just bad. And then you could combine it with the filters and the mouth closing more and more. It's just bad. But it's one thing for something to be ugly. Like, some of those other outfits were ugly, but this wasn't just ugly. This was like an arts and crafts project gone wrong. I mean, I have seen better on Project Runway when they give them a garbage challenge. I
By the
mean,
way, Project
no
Runway
exaggeration,
tonight.
like, this is horrible.
By the way, Project Runway tonight, I haven't watched it. The theme was Housewives, so
Oh, I can't
I'm
wait.
gonna have to watch.
Yeah, I love me some Project Runway, and I love that Christian Siriano is now one of the judges. Well, he's one of my favorite designers anyway. Love him. And plus, he loves dressing the thick girls, makes us look pretty.
And he's from
Um,
Maryland, so I got to give him big ups
yeah,
for that. So
exactly.
that
But he loves dressing the voluptuous sisters, so I'm down with that. Because ever since he got a hold of Leslie Jones, she's been a completely different person on the red carpet. Like even her attitude, like he makes her feel beautiful, and I love that.
I
Um,
also have a pair of Payless shoes that he had. He had a
yeah.
line at
Oh, he
Payless,
has
and they
cute
were
stuff.
really cute. Yeah, 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 yeah.
He has a his line of comforters and home interiors and stuff is gorgeous too. They have it at, I forget what store it's at, but I found it on Amazon because he there's a comforter set of his that I actually want to get. So
Okay.
yeah, Christian is, yeah, he does it in these streets, and now he's got the bridal thing going on. He ain't playing. I ain't mad at it. If you can do it and people buy it, then as I always say, I ain't knocking nobody's bag as long as it's legal. So you do you, Christian. Um, but anywho, so that was basically it. I sorry folks that we made you wait so long to talk about that ugly outfit. It was like on my mind the whole time we were talking about it, but we just kept going down rabbit holes about other stuff. But oh my god, I like it's like nightmarish. Honestly, I truly, except for Whitney, obviously because she made the grand entrance, but I gets into the fashions, and uh Meredith's situation literally obliterated what everybody else wore, Whitney notwithstanding. In my head, I truly do not remember anything that anybody else had on. I know Mary had on a coat, I think it was like black and white herringbone, and I do remember specifically saying out loud that Jennie looked nice because again, she always dresses for her figure or whatever. Oh, and I remember now the one thing I do remember, because again, it was equally horrible. Jen wore that brown wig. Not even the same wig that she wore in her house, like another bad wig. And I'm like, girl.
She's struggling. She's
Whew.
struggling. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a
that
struggle, and
hairstyling.
yeah, and this was a fancy event, and if nothing else, even though sometimes she, it may need to edit and take one or two things off, like Coco Chanel said, before you leave out the door, just take one thing off. We know that Jen usually puts one thing on, but even in her excess, most of the time, she still ends up looking better than everybody else, or at least in the top one or two of the group when they are getting dressed up. It is very rare, unless she's just being deliberately outrageous, for an occasion, that I don't like what she wears, particularly when they dress up. But I say that to say that she gives you a full look from head to toe. You never look at Jen and say, I like everything but the hair. You either like it or you don't like it, but she gives you a full look from head to toe, which means she has a team doing that full look from head to toe. And I guess the team ain't available to work on her head because since Coach Shaw wants to pay less rent, obviously they want to pay less on the beauty squad. And let's face it, some of the people that was in her squad doing her face and hair might have been informants, because we know that the feds are not above getting some people in your crew to watch you when you under surveillance. So she might
But
not need to have
at the
too
end
many
of the
folks around.
day, at the end of the day, if she's the fashion horse, it doesn't speak much to overall all of them. I mean,
Well,
they're
no, and I
still
agree.
not great.
I agree
Yeah, yeah.
because it's as sad as it was that the whole drama went down between her and the designer for her reunion dress, because the guy that they had the big whole thing with, that's the guy, the Pacific Asian Pacific guy who did, because I think he was from Hawaii maybe, but or Samoa, one of them. But at any rate, he I get it, argument with him notwithstanding, and I'm sad for him if he was abused and all of that. That notwithstanding, the dress was ugly, and he did Heather's dress as well, and hers was ugly. And in fact, he made Heather look big and matronly and hot, and it just looked like she was wearing a big ugly comforter. And that was unfortunate, because every woman, when you get dressed up, wants to feel pretty. And we just know from just Heather's affect and the things that she said, even when she doesn't say it, she probably doesn't always feel pretty. And so that made me even sadder to see her just sitting up there looking like somebody's really sad, hot, heavy mother of the bride dress. Jen, which it was obvious that it was the same designer because they were very similar. It just looked like an ice skater who went to the car wash and got caught up in one of the machines. I mean, it was just bad. But the hair was good. Because again, she gonna give you some hair. But
Yeah,
it'll
there's
be
that.
interesting to see the looks, because we know that everybody is in it, when after that first season and they hear all the criticism and all that other kind of stuff. Everybody except for Potomac, but I think that's just they ain't got no money. The They usually try to step their game up with the looks. The women in Beverly Hills don't care, because they are on the other end of the spectrum. Some of them have so much money they've reached that we can walk around and look like the Olsen twins kind of thing. So but the rest of them, Jersey, Atlanta, all of them, after they've had a season, they hear everybody, whatever, they try to bring it. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, because like the Potomac being in the DMV, it's still not a fashiony place. But they do have access because of the money that comes through there. So there are boutique shops and designers because of people who are always there for Sundance and all of that. So I think, unlike the DC women, the DMV women, they have access. It just depends on whether or not they hire the right people or get stylists to borrow the right dresses. I think Meredith is like a Giselle Bryant, where she actually thinks that she knows best about what she should wear, especially given that she is sort of fashion industry adjacent with the jewelry thing, and because of her son. So I think she's one of those people that it will be hard to fix, because nobody wears the kind of stuff that she wears if they're listening to somebody.
Right, right.
So if she looks good, it will be by accident. I think the person who if I were to say I were looking forward to somebody, the people I'm looking forward to are probably Whitney and Jennie, because I think those two have the potential to go really, really right, because there are stylists who would be happy to dress either one of them, and Jenny's also got the hair. So I think they have the potential to go really, really right or really, really wrong. I was really sad about Whitney last year, because I liked Whitney's clothes the entire season, and then she's another one that came to the reunion looking like the mother of the bride. Her dress should have been on Meredith. It was way too old for her. It wasn't even a matter of whether it was pretty or as ugly. It made her look like she was 60. Um, uh, she's got, and then Jenny just has a good body, and she obviously doesn't have an issue with showing it off. So to me, with her, it's just a matter of her choosing the right dress, and somebody not going overboard and doing a Robin Dixon with something crazy with her hair and makeup, because that is where people tend to screw up with women of Asian descent. they go way too far doing dumb stuff with their hair and makeup, or like putting some
Yeah,
whack color in it, like having her come out in a blonde wig. So now I'm actually I'm a little anxious because now I'm worried. I'm
I
like,
don't
girl, put your foot down.
I don't think she's gonna be blonde anytime soon. I think she has enough sense not to go for that. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see.
Lisa keeps it basic. I don't think it's she I don't ever I don't remember her from the reunion, but I just remember I didn't particularly like it. But as far as during the season, I don't ever necessarily hate what she wears. I think she keeps it very simple. She's black pants, turtleneck, whatever. She's very like Sharon Stone-ish kind of thing. I think she, again, remember, she wants to be posh, so she tries to keep it like very clean lines, classic looks, whatever. She's got the dark hair, the cheekbones, whatever. I'm not necessarily against that. uh in fact, I feel like if she kind of stuck with that and had the right person dress her for the reunion and kept that very clean line, look, it might actually be kind of hot because she does have the dark hair and she, over tan, so she's got the dark skin or whatever.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so if she didn't, I think her where she went wrong last year for the reunion is she dressed against her norm. She actually needs to keep it to really just do a dressier version of what she wears every week, and I think she would be fine. And quite frankly, the same thing with Whitney, because whoever dressed her decided to go like glam, which is fine because it's the reunion, but keep it young. Like, she don't have to look as old as her castmates. And I'm not saying they're old, but I mean, all of them are a good 15 years older than her. She's 30. Let her be 30, and she has the body to do it. So yeah, so we'll see, but I'm sure we'll see that in the next day or two, because they said that they were filming in California as opposed to Salt Lake City. So unless something got held up, because they did say that they were filming in LA, so unless something got held up as it relates to COVID, then I'm sure they did it. They don't have the East Coast drama that we do with the
Right,
snow
right.
and
But they probably still have
all of.
Omicron.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because that was the one big news. Omicron took out the whole cast of Atlanta, not even one or two,
Yeah, I
like all
saw
of them.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
saw
then
that.
Beverly Hills, I think it was like two at a time. Like two of them had it, and then one of them had it, but they were still like able to film somewhat. But Atlanta, they like had to completely shut down. So Omicron ain't playing, or
Nope,
as I
no,
call it,
they're not.
Omarion. It's the Omarion touch. But anywho, thank you all for listening. Melissa and I went on way too long. She's gonna fire me because we started so early and we are still on. I think that I keep forgetting that even for me, it is a school. My daughter has off school, but I still have to work. But I'm treating it like it's a snow day for me when I work from home. You don't get snow days when you work from home.
No,
Like
you don't.
we walk across, like I walk across the hall to the office. So
Yeah, yeah, but you still gotta be on. You still gotta be on.
I still got to be on. And that's the thing. Like, why am I thinking a snow day makes it, and snow day doesn't change my life? I walk across the hall. I do, though, get washed up and dressed. I mean, not fancy, but I do get washed up and dressed and stuff. So, to wake myself up and do everything, like, I have a cup of coffee or tea or what have you. But so I'm not totally trifling, or I at least I'll put on a fresh pair of pajamas.
Right, right, right. And no, that's the least we can do. That's the
Yeah, I'm
least
building
we can do.
the loungewear wardrobe is everything right about now.
It sure is. It sure is.
So, all right then. Well, thank you so much as always for hanging with me, Missy. I guess tomorrow I'll have to do my crazy lady episodes. Like I said, everybody tune in. I am going to do a show that is going to feature the cases involving, or at least the resolution of the cases involving Ghislaine Maxwell and Elizabeth Holmes, also known as When Poor Little Rich Girls Fail. So that is going
Good
to
title.
yeah. So and it's gonna talk a lot more about not just what they did and them being found guilty. But as I did before, for those of you who've listened to previous episodes, particularly one where I did a bit of a deep dive as it relates to Holmes, a conversation about some of the other implications of both of these cases with these women going down, and rightfully so, for what they did, but there being a lot of men walking away. And I'm not just talking about the fact that Jeffrey Epstein is no longer with us, but a lot of other folks that I don't think she's ever going to tell on for a number of reasons, which I'll discuss tomorrow, as well as Elizabeth Holmes and the fact that there was a lot of folks who sat around that table with her, all men who participated in this massive fraud and are suddenly pretending that they were taken by this unlikely femme fatale. So we'll definitely delve a little deeper into that. I'm looking forward to talking with you all about that. So I will be recording that. If not tomorrow, then on Saturday morning, because tomorrow is the finale of Ready to Love. And so I got to bring the crew back for us to wrap that up. So, as always, though, thank you for listening. Part one, part two, whichever you listen to. Thank you to Missy for coming. Happy New Year! Make sure you follow me on all of the avenues. You can go on Instagram and Twitter at Let's Be Honest JJ. That's LETSBEHONEST for Just Jonda. You can email me if you have any actual news or you have legal questions. You can certainly email me at the information provided. You can also use that for booking. My book is available. Please use the link only to purchase. It's a MailChimp chimp link that will take you there so that you can read my story and others about parenting in this pandemic. So it's a great book. We had a great time putting it together. We're going to do more shows to talk about that. So you'll hear more about that soon as well. Otherwise, as always, if you're thinking about it, clicking about it, linking about it, or in any other way want to talk about it, chances are I want to talk about it too. So let's be honest together. Bye bye.